Utah, what that's like, what makes it different. We're also going to talk about the rendezvous scene out there out west. Sam and Scott travel around even all the way up to Wyoming to go to some rendezvous and compete with their black powder muzzleloaders. Really just an energizing conversation, and I'm really pleased that this just happened to be our first episode of 2022. I think Sam and Scott both have some great perspectives, being a father and son, about how they got into it, what keeps them interested in muzzleloading. I think there's some great stories in here that really just setting us right out the gate on the right foot. So I really hope you enjoy this episode, and I'd like to thank Sam and Scott for coming on and sharing their stories with us. Where are you guys located? You know, just a state or region that you don't have to narrow down to coordinates.
You're absolutely good. We are just west of Salt Lake.
Okay.
So just kind of on the other side of the mountain there to the west.
Okay.
Is where we're located.
And did the elk hunting that you were talking about go okay?
We're still working on that one.
Okay.
It's elk, and that's how, I don't know, we can find them, but they're either on private property or they're still at,
6 miles away.
Yeah, and 6 miles away and 9,000 feet, and you really can't do much about it where they are. So it's working on it. We've got till the end of January, so we're hoping that we can make that one work, because that would be really cool to. There's nothing that eats better than elk. I don't know if you've ever had that, but
I've not.
Yeah, it's the best. It's excellent meat.
I mean, around here we just pretty much have whitetail and turkey, and then some varmints, but they don't eat very good.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of good variety here. I mean, well, on your standard, hunts, I mean, deer and elk, very common. Mm-hmm. We have turkeys and we have lots of coyotes, but we also have, for limited entry aspect of it, I mean, you can hunt antelope, you can hunt bison, 2 bighorn sheep, both desert and Rocky Mountain goats. Wow. So there's a lot of variety, but and moose. Yeah. It's just not easy to acquire tags. On a once in a lifetime hunt, that's a once in a lifetime hunt. It'll probably take you, I'm putting in for desert bighorn sheep, and I think I have 18 years I put in and have not drawn. Wow. So, I mean, and I might not get to draw it. Just hopefully I can draw it before I'm too old to where I can't pursue them,
So I guess isn't really in the topics, but I'm just kind of curious. Is that due to the game commissions and things seeing the interest in hunting for those, and they're limiting how many you can take for that, or what's the process behind that? Because I hear that from everybody out there, whereas around here it's really kind of open season a lot of the times on at least on whitetail and things.
Yeah, and they're just a different animal over a mule deer. You know what I'm saying? We have a lot less mule deer in the state. Okay. And so really the way it works, for your average hunter, you might only get a tag every couple of years. To hunt mule deer, a lot of people have switched over to muzzleloader because you're more likely to get a tag. And we only have, on our hunts, well, on a rifle or a muzzleloader hunt, you have 9 days.
That's really short.
That's a total length of your hunt. If you're a bow hunter, I think that one's about 5 weeks, 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So they have a long hunt there because they're not as successful. So we start in archery in August, and then the muzzleloader hunt here is in September, first part of October, but it's 9 days. It's Wednesday to the following Thursday. Okay. So you are really kind of limited, and that's your deer tag. Wow. So you're not going to be able to, for an adult, you're not going to be able to go out and, harvest a couple bucks this year in this state, because that's not a possibility, right? You have one buck tag, and it might take a little while. Now on a youth hunt, something that the state does that is really cool is they allow a youth hunter to hunt all 3 seasons, but they can only harvest one animal. Okay. But so they can, so Sam this year started on the bow hunt and then ended up, harvesting a deer on the opening day on the muzzler hunt. And had that not been successful at the end of those 9 days, then he could have still hunted on the rifle. Okay. And then something they also do out here that's really cool as far as youth go. And I have an old permit that they used to do back in the 90s. I bought a lifetime license. So I'm guaranteed a deer tag every year, even though other people have to struggle to get a tag. Okay. So what I do it's like last year, Sam drew a tag. This year, he will not. I mean, this is coming up 2022, he won't draw a tag, but I can mentor him my tag. And then both of us can hunt off of that tag. We can only kill one deer, but we can both hunt, be in the field together. But it allows him the opportunity to hunt more. And, as a dad, I'm just trying to give him every opportunity I can.
Yeah. That's really awesome. I think that's a really encouraging thing for your state to do, that mentorship. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool because if he doesn't, and where it's harder to get a permit, I mean, really, they can start hunting at 12, but if he only has, let's say, 2 permits by the time he's 18, how many of those kids are going to want to keep doing it?
Exactly, yeah.
They have to be really dedicated. If you've only had a couple times at it, to keep at it.
That's not enough.
No, it's not anywhere near enough. And we have lots of, small game opportunities, lots of turkey opportunities, lots of waterfowl, grouse. And we do all those things.
Because it's all hunting.
Yeah.
It's all time out.
Yeah, it's all fun. But that's kind of how the deer aspect of it works. But a lot of it's just, we just don't have the number of deer that you have. Yeah. And we're a lot more open too, right? I mean, you could have 40 acres of property, in certain parts of the country and have plenty of deer on there and those kind of things. And you could have 40 acres here and there's really nothing on it.
Yeah. It's so much bigger out there, I think it's a
lot bigger country.
Yeah.
They just move through a lot more wherever there's water they are, and they move around. So you could have 40 acres and then have 100 deer on it one day and then the next day have 20 and then
and nothing.
Yeah.
Depending on where it is and that kind of stuff. A lot of what we hunt too is all public land.
Okay.
And so whether that's BLM, Bureau of Land Management, or if it is National Forest or state lands, I mean, most of our state is open. And so you're able to hunt a lot of places, but really deer, and it's interesting where we like to hunt deer. There may be deer in these canyons very heavy this year, and next year there's just not. They're just over, a mile from here or something.
Okay.
Like that. So it takes a little while to pattern them, and a lot of that's scouting, right? Just trying to find out where they are and spending time in the woods anyways, which is always good.
Yeah. It's also interesting on rainy years we'll have great big bucks, and when we don't get very much rain at all, they're just up on the mountain. Miles up there, super steep crap, you can't get to them. Okay. But it all depends on how much water there is.
Yeah, water's a big deal out here too. Especially we've been in a drought the last few years, so that kind of makes hunting tricky too. Water's a big key player.
So at those high altitudes, are they able to find more water then? Or
and it's not as hot too.
Okay.
Right? So the vegetation has more of a chance to grow.
That makes sense.
And so a lot of those especially bigger deer, they'll stay up higher, but you'll also have them right off farm fields too. So it just kind of depends. But where we hunt, it's probably about 5,000 foot in elevation usually, but the peaks around there are running right about 9 to 10,000 feet. And so, but those, you'll have deer, they're all the way up there sometimes, and you might not be able to access them, but they also get left alone. And so, it just kind of depends on where you are and what we're doing. But so we do a lot of scouting all summer long.
Okay. So how did you then, Scott, get into muzzleloading then? To kind of jump into some of our questions here. Have you always been a hunter and an outdoorsman, or did you kind of find that yourself?
I was raised in the woods. I mean, we hunted and fished all the time. And that was just a blessing, right, to grow up that way. And so hunting has always been a big part of my family tradition. At that time, we'd have a big deer camp when I was little, kind of before I could hunt, and have, grandpa there and uncle there, and I kind of have some of that tradition. And so it's something I always wanted to do. Now, as far as muzzleloading goes, that was really kind of a foreign thing. We hunted, my dad was a big bow hunter, and we hunted deer on a rifle. Now, then at that time in Utah, I mean, they had a lot more deer hunters, and it was a lot more open. Where now it's much more restrictive on tags, where then they could buy multiple tags and they just had a lot more opportunities than we have now that way. But a lot of that's because we have such a higher population in our state as opposed to what we did then. But so as far as muzzleloading goes, hunting is something I grew up with, and that was, my dad's thing really was bow hunting for deer. That was a big deal. We practiced, every night when, after work, he and I would go out and shoot, and just really was awesome. And I really had a lot of, as I kind of looked over the questions and as I've been thinking about this today, I had a lot of people who planted seeds in my life as far as black powder aspect of it and the mountain men stuff. I mean, we're in Utah. I mean, we're in a state that had mountain men in it during the fur trade era, and rendezvous were held right here. And so there was always that kind of aspect of it. I mean, I had a grandpa that was just a great storyteller, and it was always him and Jim Bridger out trapping and those kind of things. And so it just really turned me on. Yeah. I always wanted to, I just was so interested in the mountain man. And I know we had a mountain man in fourth grade. They study Utah history, and we had a mountain man come into our class, and I was just like, man, this is what I want my life to be, bucket shootings and these guns. And my buddy and I, we just wanted to run away and go live in the woods, because that's the perception a 10-year-old has of what a mountain man is. But I didn't have anybody, to show me as far as black powder goes. And that's really something, when I got in my early 20s, I just had to do on my own. And I bought a cap and ball revolver because I wanted to get into it, but it was the cheapest way I could get into it to see if I liked it, and my dad had shot one before, and he's like, oh yeah, they're a lot of fun, but they're just, you got to clean them in a bathtub. And it was the cleaning part of it that was just too overwhelming for him at the time. And then after I bought that I had to order a Hawken, because that's what everybody had to have. Yep. And, bought that, and just a life-changing event really for me. Just started getting into black powder and really started, just slowly just made that transition, but I just absolutely ate it up. Just the historical aspect of it, to be able to, it was awesome for me to be able to kind of live that dream that I had as a little kid in shooting a traditional black powder gun.
Yeah, there's something really special about that, especially when you're able to be exposed to it at such a young age and then kind of find it later down the road. I think when we talk about muzzleloading and black powder a lot, there's a lot of interest in getting kids into it, but the argument goes back and forth about, well, kids don't have any money, they can't, go out and buy anything. But if we expose them to it early on, like you were, they can find their way back to it down the road and become kind of lifelong fans of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. And that's something that we've done is, I always try to look for kids or someone that I can influence that way, someone who might have that same dream that, I can take them out shooting and have a great time and kind of just, just give them that exposure, because it's such a fun thing. And the historical part of it, to me, I just ate it up. Yeah. It was just so fun.
So Sam, how did that influence you getting into muzzleloading then, having a father that, fell in love with it as a kid and reconnected with it?
Well, every year they do a mountain men rendezvous where you go compete for a gun and that kind of stuff, and you shoot gongs and all this kind of different stuff. And we went to a place called Fort Bridger every year as a kid. And I grew up watching old TV shows like Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone and all that kind of stuff. So I grew up outside, and when I would sit down, that's what I was doing, was watching stuff like that. And never really was a question to me that that's what I wanted to do. And started competing, and my second deer I shot with a traditional muzzleloader was like 20 yards, super duper cool.
Wow. So is that kind of a stalk, getting up into that, getting that close to the deer?
Patterned them where they were walking across each night, and we just sat at a tree, and they came closer than normal. It was just right on top of us. And
wow.
Matt had to get it to stop and dropped it, or it didn't drop, but shot it.
Yeah, it shot it well. No, it was awesome. And I'll just jump in. I know where he said Matt, it just kind of, made a fawn noise with our mouth as they came across, just a little meh. And to stop the deer right in his tracks. And, as a dad, you're just like going, okay, kid, here's your chance. they are on us, and he absolutely performed well on that deer.
And this, the deer I got, we'd been scouting for a long time because it's super non-typical. My first one, not the one I just shot, but the one antler comes above the eye and forks. It's almost like a ball almost. It's the weirdest looking thing.
It's just it's a little deer.
Yeah. And then the other one came straight up and then straight down. So this is the deer I really wanted to shoot, and my dad mentored me that tag to shoot this deer.
Oh, cool.
That was the plan, that was going to be my first deer, first buck anyway. And that's how it came together. And then after that, went and competed at Rendezvous and won a gun my first year, and all the kind of stuff just fueled it. And it's just been so rewarding mentally and actual rewards, meat on the table. And I got a gun the first year I ever even shot a muzzleloader.
That's awesome.
It was pretty awesome. It was a proud dad moment, definitely.
For sure. Yeah, I can't even imagine. That's got to just be like ear to ear, just happy as can be.
It absolutely is. It still is.
Do you still shoot with that rifle you won then?
I'm left eye dominant, so I shoot a different one because that one was right eye dominant. So the hammer's on the other side.
Gotcha.
And I still shoot it when I get the opportunity to, but I shoot a left eye dominant or left-handed gun.
Yeah. So what are you guys using muzzleloaders for? We've touched a little bit, I think, on this already with some of your competition and things, but really just kind of what aspects of muzzleloading are you involved in out there?
It's more hunting than rifle, and you have to get closer, and it's, I think, funner in that sense, but it's not as difficult as a bow. And so I like it more that way. And the competition side is just a lot of fun just to go shoot with some friends that we've had for years and try our hardest and get rewarded for it. But so competition shooting a little bit where you're all dressed up in buckskins, all that kind of crazy stuff, and then hunting.
Yeah. And that's basically what we do. We've probably last year, I think we shot at 3 rendezvous.
Okay. Yeah.
There were a couple closed because of COVID, and 2 of those were smaller rendezvous. And then we shot at the Fort Bridger rendezvous, which is a big event in Wyoming. But that, and then muzzleloader hunting. I mean, ever since I really kind of started muzzleloader hunting, I have taken, antelope and elk and stuff with a centerfire rifle, but it's just, I want to hunt with a muzzleloader. I mean, that's my primary thing, that's what I want to do. And so it all kind of just, helps with each other. I mean, you shoot at a competition, lets you kind of know what you're able to do to make you a better hunter. And, the more you hunt as well, it makes you better at competition, right? So it all kind of helps feed each other.
You kind of get used to the pressure on both ends that you're under, both in competition and hunting.
Yeah, that's one thing that I would say is awesome for a kid, especially because, I remember the first rendezvous I shot at, and like I said, I didn't really have anybody to hold my hand. And but it's something I wanted to do. I actually had kind of talked to a couple of my friends that had never competed before and hadn't. The muzzleloaders they had shot were mine, and kind of got them into it, and was like, "Hey, we got to go shoot at this rendezvous. Let's go." And I mean, I was shaking so bad, so nervous. It was hard just to even. Get my registration fees paid and didn't even participate in all the events. I was just so excited I shot at one, and, that it was good. But I really think for a kid to be able to have that pressure, and not that as a dad I'm putting them under pressure, but just the pressure of competition. It is, when you've got people shooting right next to you and smoke and
there's a gun on the line too. So the adrenaline is crazy. And then you go hunt a deer and it's not, there's still adrenaline because it's a deer and it's freaking awesome, but it's not, it's easier to control your adrenaline when you've had high levels of it.
Yep, absolutely.
Regularly.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You get kind of used to it.
Yeah. Now you just have to make the shot, right? As opposed to deal with all the other stuff that, goes with that adrenaline aspect of it.
And the kinds of stuff you shoot at the rendezvous are just like a gong. You can't see how far it is. You don't know how far it is. So you just kind of have to put in what you hope is the right amount of powder and shoot at it. So with the deer, it's less of, oh crap, I got to shoot it. What yardage is it at? All this kind of stuff. You just have to know where to hold. And once you got that down, it's just shooting at that point.
Yeah. Then you're just good to go.
Yeah.
So what keeps you coming back to muzzleloaders over, modern firearms? Because there's so many out there. They make it so easy.
Sure. I'll jump in. Well, Sam, do you want to start and then I'll finish, or what do you want to do?
Like I said earlier, it's harder than a rifle because you're getting closer and it's more personal, and you can get more of a feel for the animal, and you have to, I don't know, not necessarily try harder, because if you're going after a massive buck with a rifle, it's obviously going to be harder than any old deer, but it's harder than a rifle and it's easier than a bow. And I shot a deer with a bow this year, and it was super tricky, but just to have the confidence that you can kill a deer but still kind of have to fight for it is a lot of fun. Yeah,
they're not just handing them out.
Yeah, I was told years ago, because coming from the bow hunting aspect of it, I had a gentleman tell me, I told him I was getting into muzzleloader and I wanted to start hunting with it, and he said, are you a rifle hunter or a bow hunter? And I said, I'm a bow hunter. And he said, well, that'll be the best thing you've ever done, is to switch, because now if you see a deer at 50 yards and you think that it's 40 yards, with a bow, you've missed it. With a muzzleloader, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of that. But for me, the thing that really hooked me on a muzzleloader and that keeps me coming back to it, the first year I ever hunted, at that time, Utah had a elk tag. It was a limited entry elk tag. But it was they gave only 1,000 permits to hunt elk with a muzzleloader. And this is in the mid 90s. So when inlines are just coming in, but I had a traditional gun and that's what I wanted to shoot. And, but I had drawn that permit and it was for either sex. And I didn't even harvest an animal, but, I had come from a bow hunter perspective of feeling, there is something kind of magical about that flight of an arrow. But I kind of come from that side of things and that connection with the past with archery. And I was hunting elk up, in a spot in Utah, but you actually go through Wyoming to get there. But you pass Fort Bridger, you pass the 1825 Rendezvous site. You're in Ashley National Forest, so you're right where the mountain men were.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember this morning cutting some fresh elk sign and tracked these elk for a couple of miles, and they had dropped down off this plateau into this really nasty stuff down below me. And I stopped kind of on this cliff outcropping. And I was just like, wow, this is the neatest thing I've ever done hunting wise, because here I am using a gun that, now I know it's not an exact replica of what they had, but to me at the time, it was definitely in the spirit of it. Right.
Yeah.
But here I am, I've got a shooting bag and I've got my supplies on me. And here I am standing in the same, I'm standing on this cliff looking down into this valley that would have had mountain men in it during the fur trade era. And for me, it hooked me. I don't think I ever have had a bow tag since, because I just lost interest in it. I just was like, no, the smoke and black powder was a lot more exciting to me, and just that historical aspect of it. But that's what kind of pushed me over the edge on hunting, if that makes sense. Pushed me over to where I'm a muzzleloader hunter, not just a hunter, but I hunt with a muzzleloader, and has never taken that away, just because it was such a cool, it's just cool. And it's exciting, when you shoot at an animal and you've held right and you've done your part, but you lose it in that smoke.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just kind of that, I don't know. It just hasn't gotten old for me at all. And I just love it. It's awesome.
There's that moment where it just hangs and everything slows down.
Yep. And you're going to see here in a second how that deer has responded if you get that opportunity, right? Sometimes you don't, but just that magic of it just has kept me hooked ever since.
So Sam, can you tell us a little bit about the hunt that you shared it for us with the photo contest? Was there anything exciting about that hunt that made it, memorable?
The cool part is these deer should have been in the valley we were sitting at probably anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour before. And so it was pretty much like, well, they're probably not going to come through. They came up higher or lower than us, so we're not going to run into them. So I was talking to my dad, and I'm facing him, and we're still, being quiet, all that kind of stuff. And my dad stops me and said, "There's a deer chewing acorns right behind you." And we paused, and we could hear this buck just chewing acorns behind us. And it was probably like 20 yards. It had just barely came.
He was really
valley.
close at that point.
Wow.
Super close. And I was telling him to shoot it if it was a good deer, but he wasn't going to shoot over my shoulder because that's smart.
He had his back to it, so he had no clue it was there. And we had just kind of met up, and we're talking. It was first thing in the morning, and we hadn't seen any deer in the clearing. And then I looked over and had seen it, and it was just, it was right behind us, coming at us.
And so I started turning around slowly, and the deer immediately pegged me and started running off. So I flipped around as quick as I could, cocked my gun, stopped it. Same thing we did with the other deer, just mount it.
Mm-hmm.
It paused, looked at me, and I shot it. And just the way, deer act when they're hit, it was dead, and ran a little bit. We went over there, and there it was.
It's just down.
It goes sometimes, and it was opening day. I'd killed that deer I was talking about earlier with the bow. That had been a super hard hunt, so I was just ready to shoot the first good buck I saw, because it had been a long hunt, so I just wanted to get more deer. And we had seen the same buck before during the bow hunt, so we knew he was there. I knew he was at least a 3-point on the one side. I didn't know if it was a 2 or 3 on the other, but shot it and went over there absolutely pumped out of my mind. That's how it goes. But
yeah, you just jittery, just amped up.
Yeah. And as a parent, it was a really cool experience for me on that. Now I know he just kind of just told it matter of factly, but as a parent, it was really cool because on his first deer, he had taken a few years prior, right, on his first year with a muzzleloader when he was 12. I did everything I could to make that a success, and, had him already on shooting sticks, because we hunt deer off the ground. We're not in tree stands or anything, and tried to do everything. But on this deer, he really, Sam has really matured. He's 15 now. He's harvested. That was his 5th deer. And because he's been able to get some landowner doe tags, and that's what his bow permit was as well too, was with a doe. It was for a doe that he had killed the week before. But this was so amazing to me because I could see the deer. I knew it was a good deer, and I wanted him to shoot it. And Sam, as we're whispering, I'm like, he's right there, and this is a good deer, Sam. You want to shoot it? And he's just like, Dad, just shoot it. Just kneel down and shoot it. No, because I would, he's in my way, but he's like, Dad, just get it. Come on, just do it. You have this one be about you, kind of thing. And I'm like, no, I want you to see this deer, and I want you to be able to take it. And so, what was so proud to me is as a kid, right? As he slowly turned, and that deer busted us, and it started to run. Now there's a couple ways when a deer busts you, right? If they know that, oh, you're a human, right? They're gone, and they're not stopping. But this deer really was not sure what we were. It just saw movement.
Okay.
So it was nervous. And so as it ran from us, and it ran about 75 yards. But Sam, and I think a lot of this honestly is coming from the Rendezvous background of this, offhand pulled the gun up, got everything lined up, and made a fawn belt, just like, and that deer stopped, turned, and pivoted. And when he did, Sam was ready for it and shot it right through the front shoulder. And it ran just a little ways, and it was obvious when he hit it. I'm like, wow, he hit that right in the front shoulder. And he said to me, he goes, yeah, Dad, I just did the front shoulder and took that out. But just to see him mature from a little kid that was, Dad kind of needed to do everything, not everything, but you know what I'm saying? Really needed to hold his hand to this. He knew, no, I'm going to shoot that deer, was ready for that deer, had everything ready to go. So as soon as it did stop and presented an opportunity, he was able to do that. So for me, that was really cool to see my son be that ready. You know what I mean? Where the torch, I was like, the torch has been passed. He doesn't need me anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the goal there. You're trying to set him up that he can go out and hunt and make it happen. And that's what he did.
Yeah, absolutely. It was awesome.
And
Wow.
also with it is, in the competition, I shoot with iron sights. That's what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the first year I've ever hunted a deer besides a rifle. I've done that before, but with a muzzleloader with a scope.
Okay. Yeah.
Muzzleloader, because I've always shot traditional, but the year before I missed a 4-point that was just a little bit out of range, and I missed it, so I was kind of ticked off and wanted to shoot a bigger buck. So I got a gun with a scope,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's because I was raised shooting iron sights. I'm so used to that a crosshair is just like so much easier than I honestly think if I was raised with a crosshair.
Yeah.
It's because it's just such an upgrade that it's a lot easier than shooting iron sights.
I think a lot of people compare it to like driving stick shift. If you can drive stick shift, you can drive anything. And I think if you can shoot with iron sights, you can shoot with anything. That's kind of how I was raised as well.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I know with Sam, I thought this was kind of funny. I was his scoutmaster when he was 12, and we had gone to summer camp that very first year, and he was doing the rifle shooting merit badge. And as a scoutmaster, I was just kind of with the group of kids, but we had done all the classroom aspect of that merit badge, right? We were, this was our range day, and we were over there, and as he sat down, and he just looked at me puzzled as all could be. And this kid has shot a lot. And he goes, "Dad, I don't have any clue how to use a scope. What am I doing? I've never even looked through a scope before." And I'm like, "Okay, there's a failure, parent, real quick." It was a quick thing. "Okay, buddy, let's, here's how it works. I want you to look down at the target. This is how it looks to you, right? And I'm like, okay, just do this and you'll be fine." And he was, quickly did it. But that was something I had really, all of his practicing as a little kid. We shot to have him ready, to participate in a rendezvous, or shot to have him ready to hunt. And that was kind of my mindset, but it just did not occur to me to grab a scope, even though, I own plenty with them, but I don't shoot them. I shoot a muzzleloader, and that's usually what we do. So,
yeah, that's just how it goes. I think it's easy for that to happen, but he's right back into it. He didn't skip a beat.
Yeah.
This podcast is brought to you by THOR Bullets. THOR Bullets are a premium full-bore muzzleloader bullet designed specifically for modern inline rifles. THOR Bullets do not require plastic sabots or belts to be fired, meaning less cleaning for you between shots. The patented copper base creates an airtight seal, giving you greater distance and accuracy. THOR's unique engineering allows the bullets to retain 95% of their weight upon impact, and the controlled expansion ensures large, easy-to-follow blood trails. THOR bullets are currently available in a 50 caliber version that is sized to your specific bore. THOR is also expanding into a new 45 caliber bullet designed for faster 1 in 24 and 1 in 22 twist inline rifles. For more information on these great bullets, visit www.thorbullets.com. We'd like to thank THOR Bullets for their sponsorship of this podcast. So I guess kind of our final question that I have here is what do you think that somebody new to muzzleloading needs to hear? And I think I'm interested because you guys are, father and son, and, so maybe Scott, what's something that a parent who wants to get their kid involved with muzzleloading black powder, maybe something that they need to hear. And Sam, what's the kind of thing that you want other young people to hear about or know about muzzleloading?
Do you want to go first?
I'll go first.
Sam will go first.
So the first thing is, if you're shooting a traditional, is powder patch ball, because that's the hardest thing to remember. If you forget powder, it's just, you're screwed. Speaking from personal experience, it's helped me a lot. But also just stick with it, especially if you're shooting a rifle beforehand, is once you get in the groove, you're in the groove, and it's what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And if you get into the groove, it's hard to get out of it. So once you get into it, you're all good. That's the main priority, is getting in the groove of shooting it, practicing, And once you do, you're going to be great, and it's not going to be difficult at all.
Well, this is my thought, and this is, goes back to me even when I got into it. You don't have to be intimidated. And one thing I really found for the most part about the Rendezvous community, they are some of the best people of helping you out. And at the time, I was too nervous to ask questions when I was wanting to get in, but they'll really help you out and say, hey, you ought to be doing this again. And, instead or whatever. But really, for the most part, that is such a great group of guys and women that are involved in that are more than willing to help you out. So there's no reason to be intimidated. One thing that I have done for my kids that Sam's older siblings didn't have the luxury of, just because I, as a parent, didn't have the money to buy a gun for a kid and kind of make it work, for a kid. But really, if you can get a gun that fits that kid, that will make such a difference. And all I did, honestly, I found a pawn shop, a CVA Frontier, a little 24-inch barrel, kind of in the spirit of a traditional gun, right? And
yeah.
Took a couple inches off of that stock and did some things to help lighten the gun up itself. And just doing that, taking those couple inches off, and then I browned the barrel and I did a right stain on the stock so it wasn't, so it kind of fits in at a Rendezvous, right, a little better.
Yeah.
Not a replica, but it's pretty good in the spirit of it. But by doing that, really helped him and helped, when you have a gun that fits. When you're, a 12-year-old boy is pretty little.
Yeah.
Or he was 10 when he started shooting. A 10-year-old little boy, most of those guys are pretty small, or a little girl for that matter. I mean, my girls all shot as well. But if they can have a gun that fits and manage that recoil, and what I mean by that, for my kids starting out, we did 20 grains of black powder of Go X3F, and that's enough to punch a hole in a piece of paper. It's not enough to hunt deer with, but they would sit and shoot that, and the recoil aspect of it wasn't hard. You know what I mean? They could handle that. Yeah. And one thing I would do with them too is, like, when Sam was little, when we were kind of shooting, kind of getting ready for, to teach him how to shoot at a Rendezvous, I wanted 5 shots out of a muzzleloader with him, and I wasn't worried about shooting at all myself. I would have him shoot 5 shots, and I didn't care if he shot them off of either shooting sticks, but I wanted a couple of those standing. Yeah. And then I would, get out his 22 and another thing too, I think it's really good, to have it interactive, so if you can shoot little silhouettes, that's a lot funner than shooting paper. And I would just set up, I've got some, buffalo silhouettes, and we would set those out there, and I'd say, okay, if you got 5 shots with your muzzleloader, if you want to do 2 now and 2 later and 1 later, because it's too, tiring to hold that gun. But then I want you to grab your 22 and I want you to shoot offhand and just sit and shoot those, buffalo. And they were, they ping. And so that's more exciting than shooting paper. But, those kind of things are a big deal. I mean, put your kid in a position to be successful. Whether it's your kid or a niece or nephew, or whether it's, a kid down the street that really wants to get involved, that shows any interest at all, help them be successful. I mean, you don't need to show them, hey, that this gun can shoot 130 grains and let's have you shoot, a buffalo bullet out of it and get thumb, because then they don't want to touch it. Yeah. And, help them be successful. And when they realize that, man, the light goes on when you shoot black powder and the smoke, and it's just exciting. But those are my thoughts. Let's just don't be intimidated. Put your kid in a position to be successful. But you can really do in that, manage recoil, manage expectations. It's not a big deal if you miss, really isn't. But let's just go have some fun and be safety conscious as a group. And it's an awesome experience, an awesome thing to do with your kids, with your family.
For sure. I think that's just really beautiful and just really a positive way to think about it that I really appreciate. I think so many times we get caught up in what makes it hard and all the roadblocks that can happen. But I think that's a really positive message. Thank you very much, Scott.
thing. There's one more thing I want to share, if I could, real quick.
Of course.
As I was just thinking, I have a daughter. She was able to harvest a deer with a muzzleloader too. My first one to get one with a patched round ball, and it was so cool. But she, just it was kind of interesting as a dad. Kind of raised her the right way, right? Doing the same kind of things that I'm talking about. But when she was a senior in high school, she had a kid take her on a date. Hey, let's go shooting with a group of friends. And, she was 5 feet tall, 100 pounds, if that. And, what does he have her do? Here, shoot my gun I hunt elk with. And she shot it twice. And she said, Dad, I hit the targets. But she did not pick a gun up for 5 years.
Really?
And it was after she went to college, and she's like, Dad, I want to hunt again. But by the time we got her ready to hunt, she was like, Dad, she had drawn her tag and she was all ready, but she said, Dad, I am so scared to shoot a gun. I just don't want to feel that because that hurt me so bad. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I think sometimes, that's kind of going back in that safe environment, right? That successful environment. Keep them in that position, because we've all heard, I shot my dad's 12 gauge and it knocked me on my hind end, right, when I was a little kid. We don't need to do that.
No, exactly.
As the adult, make that a positive experience, and if you do, I mean, it's fun. I've been able to go with, this last rendezvous we went to. I had my son-in-law there. Who had competed the year before. I had a daughter-in-law there who shot. I had my older son. I had Sam there. That it really is a neat family experience, whether you're on the mountain hunting a deer or you're, competing. What a great opportunity it is to be there with your family doing those things. But just keep it a good, safe, fun environment, and it's a good thing.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I mean, unfortunately, I think that's kind of an aspect of firearms in general, giving something to somebody that's, just too hot. I think I'm hopeful that we're kind of shifting away to that, like you say, to a much more positive experience for everybody, so that we can keep more people engaged in this and keep everybody comfortable with what they're doing. I mean, I've shot, a few stout loads and things, and I get the laughs and things, but really making it so that we keep everybody interested and involved. I think that's how we keep all this going.
Absolutely. And it's the only way we're going to keep it going, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we have to, in order to keep it going, you have to replenish the amount of people they're getting out of it. I think on the hunting side, at least in this state, I mean, muzzleloader hunting is going crazy.
Really?
But the actual buck skinning, traditional rendezvous stuff, depends where you are. But it's a smaller group. You just have guys keep dying off, and you've got to replenish that tank.
Yeah, it's good to put back in what you've taken out. Maybe is
absolutely
a good theme there.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank Scott and Sam again for coming on and having this great conversation with me. It was really what I needed, kind of coming out of the busyness of the holidays to sit down and talk passionately about muzzleloaders and getting people involved in muzzleloading. That's what we're really all about here at I Love Muzzleloading. And Sam and Scott, I think, just hit the nail right on the head. Really got me energized about muzzleloading and talking about muzzleloading, and I hope that they did the same for you. If you have the opportunity out there to share a muzzleloader with somebody, give somebody their first shot, please do. I really encourage you to just burn a little powder with somebody, get them hooked, get them interested. Yeah, and if you can't, if you're low on powder and you just want to show somebody a neat muzzleloader, just because it's so different than what we're used to now. When it comes to contemporary firearms, I think a lot of the visual aspect and the wood and the metal that you see on muzzleloaders can be alluring all on their own. We have a few more episodes planned here coming up this early, kind of late winter. I guess saying early spring is a little too optimistic probably at this point as we're talking here, but more episodes on the way. I've got some neat people coming on I think you'll enjoy to hear from. A lot of different perspectives, young and old, and different aspects too of muzzleloading and kind of long rifle accoutrement culture that I'm excited to share. Especially with, there's so much interest now in muzzleloading and really all aspects of it, from the modern to the traditional to the ultra traditional of making all of your own gear. So really neat episodes on the way that I hope you'll enjoy. I'd like to thank Jeff Clemens at THOR Bullets here real quick. Jeff reached out late last year and wanted to sponsor another year of the podcast. And I really can't thank him enough for that. Jeff and Thor have been really supportive of I Love Muzzleloading really from the start, and really supportive of the community as a whole. I know that many of us are round ball shooters, diehard lead shooters and lead round ball shooters, but I really encourage you, if you have a modern muzzleloader, you're interested in trying out a different kind of projectile out there, please do check out Thor. His support and Thor's support is helping us cover the website costs for the year, and it's going to help us do a few more things that I'm really excited about, kind of trying to give back to the community here a little bit. You may have heard we're sponsoring the Gunmakers Fair at Kempton, and contributions like Thor does for us here help us kind of give back, and like Scott talked about in this episode, kind of try to replenish the well of the muzzleloading community to help keep it going. So I just wanted to say that, Thor, they're really hands off about it. They don't tell me what to say or how to say it or what to do in any of the videos or anything. It's really, I think I'm very blessed to have a passionate sponsor and supporter of what we're doing here. I also like to thank my wife, Paisley, real quick. A lot of exciting things happening this year for us. She's, I think, one of the first supporter of I Love Muzzleloading. Really, when talking to her late last year about it, or kind of in the middle of last year, I guess. Talking to her a little bit about it in the middle of last year, she was really supportive and really passionately engaged about it. And so I'd just like to thank her once again for being supportive of I Love Muzzleloading and of me. She's a wonderful wife, and I couldn't ask for better. Once again, I'm Ethan, and I Love Muzzleloading. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to learn more about what we talked about in this episode or anything else that we talk about on the show, please visit ilovemuzzleloading.com. Thank you again. We'll catch you next time.